Welcome to another hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color right here on SportsZone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that SportsZone Chicago app today, wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, too, you can download and watch our other live shows that air throughout the week. So you happen to miss them, you can go back and watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that SportsZone Chicago app today. Speaking of SportsZone Chicago, you can follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please find SportsZone Chicago on all social media platforms. And if you're a big fan of our work, which I know many of you are, you can always go to subscribe to our podcast at War Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes on those podcast platforms. You ready? WARR on Anchor. Once again, at War on Anchor. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media. Once again, at War Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very different opinions, especially for today's show. We're going to get right into it in just a few moments. And speaking of this extravagance, we call it a 2-hour radio show. You can always hit us up in the comment section on SportsZone Chicago's Facebook page or at SportsZone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly or stupid, I'm giving Lakeena full power to give you fools the bill and be a boot. I love when she says that. But before we begin, we must remind you that you can also catch SportsZone Chicago now available on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program and no more excuses. SportsZone Chicago is now on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on the sports folder and download SportsZone Chicago's app through that avenue. If you don't have a Roku TV, there's a bunch of handheld devices, iPad, iPhone, iTouch, your Chromebook like I'm using right now, your personal computer. Just download that Roku TV app and access SportsZone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. SportsZone Chicago is now available on Roku TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
Anywhere, anytime you need it. So it's all right.
You know we can provide.
Oh boy. All right. That's all you can sing too, because we can't pay the rights to that
That's why I stopped.
Let's get right to it. So we gotta get it out the way and talk some Bulls. Yuck. Okay. All right, I'm gonna let you go first, Sid, because I got something to say to both Bulls and Bulls Nation, and some people in Bulls Nation are not gonna like what I'm gonna say. So I'll let you.
You sure you want to go first, or
no? You go first. No, after you. After you.
Okay. Well, this is coming from the dome and not from a script. This was supposed to be your easiest part of the schedule, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
This past Monday, they beat the Atlanta Hawks pretty convincingly at the United Center. You figure, well, this team is moving in the right direction like it's supposed to. They're supposed to be at 500 around this time next week or close to the All-Star break. And things were coming together. Zach LaVine was averaging over 32 points a game. DeMar DeRozan just came back from his calf injury. They're finally starting to get Nikolai Vucevic involved, especially in the post again, just like early this season. He's starting to get production from your bench. It looks like Patrick Williams is starting to show his form. But then the bottom dropped out. Losing to Lakeena's Indiana Pacers on Wednesday and have your main guy, Zach LaVine, demand the ball from Vucevic, even though Vucevic had a great game that night. And you have several brain cramps down the stretch in that game. It just didn't make any sense. And then last night's game at Charlotte against the Michael Jordan's Hornets, you get outplayed, you get out-hustled, you get outclassed. You barely scored 96 points. The Hornets are one of the worst teams in the NBA. And you didn't show up. I just have a couple of questions. Lakeena, is this chemistry really going to work? And number two, shout out to head coach Billy Donovan. I know he's been getting some sort of a pass in this town, kind of, sort of, but how much blame can you put on Billy Donovan? And number two, Number three, I should say. And I know I'm sure you're going to talk about this. I know we kind of avoided this talk this season, but is it really time to trade a couple of your big stars away from this team?
All right. Okay. Where to go first? Oh, the Pacers game. You were up by 21 in the third quarter. Well, actually, like late in the second quarter, going into the third. Without their best player, Tyrese Halliburton, who I really like a lot. He's out. He's going to be out for a while. 2. And you blow the game. They score, I think, the Pacers score like 43 points or something like that in the third. That's what, kind of broke the game open and such. Then they scored, it totally scored about 70 points in the second half. So, okay. Back-to-back turnovers for Levine, and all this other stuff. Okay, look, it happens. Look, I think the Celtics blew a big lead and lost. So, okay, yeah, it happens. Fine, whatever. It happens in a long season. All right, okay. But this Charlotte team, Charlotte is one of the worst teams in the NBA. They're 10 games behind, the Bulls. Really? I mean, LaMelo Ball, he's solid. Terry Rozier the third. I've been a fan of his since he was in college. Okay, fine. But there's no way that they should have won that game. I don't know if it's disinterested. I don't know if it's because the All-Star break had come quick enough. I know you got that coaching plays a role. Okay, fine. Okay, it happens. But this should have been the time when you win 3 in a row. You're in an easy part of your schedule. You should have won both, if not one, if not both these games. It's pure and simple. You should be right up there, like in the 7th or the spot. The crazy thing is they're still only about 4.5 back. They're like right at the edge right now because the Wizards got the tiebreaker. The Wizards got the 10th spot right now, and there's only about a 3-game difference between 7th and 11th. So the crazy thing is they're still in it, whether people want to admit it or not. And also, too, a lot of stuff has to. I've seen all the rumors, all the Vooch rumors. I saw some reports saying that there's rumblings, whatever that means, that that there's first round. So there's some teams that will give 2 first-round picks for Caruso. Oh, really? That doesn't make any sense. He's had his struggles too. I don't know, but all right. You play Orlando tonight. I know you got Bunkero, and he's probably one of the best rookies out there right now. I mean, I just this team is frustrating me because this team should be better than what they are right now. I know Lonzo's been out for a while and such. I know, but Zach, you're going back to the point where people are questioning whether you should have gotten a max contract. Vooch actually had his worst game, probably his worst game in a while in that game against the Hornets on Wednesday. So, but yet. Yeah, I mean, this team is very frustrating, and the weird thing is they're still in the hunt for a playoff berth. I know some people don't like that, but look, the standings, the numbers don't lie. So I'm sorry if that's not good enough for some of y'all. All right, 1. Now back to Bulls Twitter. Some of y'all didn't say a freaking word during that 3-game winning streak, but now they've lost 2 in a row. Everybody's saying blow the team up. Trade everybody, blah, blah, blah. Okay, some of y'all are not going to be able to handle another rebuild. You won't. So it's no, you won't. No, you won't. Yeah, you can probably be right up there, with the Grizzlies and the Pelicans where they are right now. But you can also be like, look where Orlando is. They've been doing the same thing for the last 15, 20 years. And they're still stuck. So I would implore everybody, Bulls, you need to get it together. 1. Both on and off the court, there's some personal stuff going on. You need to figure it out because the crazy is you're still in it. And all you so-called Bulls fans, you better check yourself because all y'all talk about blow the team up, get rid of everybody. Okay, you're not going to be able to handle another rebuild. You're not. Some of you. Some of you will. Some of you are probably very patient and diehards. I'll give some of y'all that, but some of you won't. That's all I gotta say.
You're listening to Second City Sports on the hashtag Football Friday edition right here on SportsZone Chicago. We're live and in living color. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. As we always say, we have very definite opinions and we bring that heat as we always do. Lakeena, as we discuss the Bulls in the NBA at large. Lakeena, I know you'll agree with me on this. The worst place to be sitting in professional sports, especially in the NBA, is in mediocrity. We know what the Bulls did last year, going back to the playoffs with 46 wins, even though they had a terrible second half, mostly due to injuries. But this year, it's no excuse. And you're stuck, like you say, you're stuck in purgatory hell and the Bulls cannot blame anybody but themselves. I still are a big fan of Arturas Karnisovas and GM Mark Eversley, but I know they didn't dream of a scenario like this.
Yeah,
You're too good to tank. You're not going to get that number one pick, so that's not happening. I do agree with you on that, but you're not good enough to, even if this team goes on a 10 wins 10 out of the next 12 or 13 games. You're stuck in the middle of the Eastern Conference at best. The way they've been playing at this point of the season, there'll be a great improvement given the way this team has been playing. But being stuck in mediocrity is just not where you want to be, especially in the NBA. You have to have a clear vision. You have to have a great plan moving forward. Shout out to our guy Lamont Scott, who I just posted up the comment from SportsZone Chicago's Facebook page. The Bulls just might need a new coach. Billy Donovan just got that extension over the summer. It wasn't announced till a couple of months into the season. I'm still scratching my head why the Bulls waited till the season gets started to announce the extension. Why did they do that? I don't know, but that's a whole nother issue. But it looks like we're going to be stuck with this team at least through the end of the season. This coming summer is going to tell a whole lot of stuff about the Chicago Bulls and where this franchise is headed. I know Vucevic is due for a contract extension this summer. He's a free agent. I know DeMar DeRozan will be a free agent next summer. So, as we said before, Lakeena, one or perhaps it may be a possibility now that both those guys will not be here in the next couple of years. That's a very strong possibility. You might have to see some sort of a halfway rebuild anyway, but we'll see what happens when we cross that bridge. But right now, Bulls fans, this has last year's Chicago White Sox vibes. You're going to have to be stuck while watching this to see how this plays out.
Well, in closing here, because like I said, we got other stuff we need to talk about because I want to get into some of the other stuff going on in the NBA, including the All-Star stuff. But look, in closing here, look, I'll just say this. I mean, look, we'll have to wait to see what happens. I mean, look, if Vooch gets traded, by the end of the season, okay, it's gonna be tough because I think he's been one of the reasons why this team's still staying afloat.
Mm-hmm.
Look, this team was about this time last year. This team was a 1 seed. This team was a 1 seed and probably had one of the best records in the NBA. But then guys started getting COVID. Lonzo got hurt. Other injuries started happening. So like this team is just has had bad luck. And I think I've heard the White Sox comparison. I think I'm sure I think they're a little bit better than the White Sox last year, but that's a whole different scenario. But look, I just think I think people just need to kind of just take a break, take a step back, and just let's just see what happens right into the All-Star break. Everything else, we'll just have to wait and see how all this unfolds. Listen to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Lakeena McGee, Sydney Brown with you. We're gonna get off the Bulls first, for the rest of the hour because I can't take any more. So we're gonna talk about some of the good stuff that happened in the NBA. Because we got a couple more minutes before we go to break here. Of course, we always go backwards. We'll go to Thursday's matchups here. And despite Luka getting banged up with the ankle sprain, which thankfully it's not serious, he's day to day, but the Mavs did beat the Suns 99-95. Spencer Dinwiddie had 36 points leading the way for the Mavs. And look, we'll see how long this lasts. I mean, they're saying that they said it's not serious. I'm talking about Luka's ankle injury. But Dinwiddie stepped up with 36 points, was a tie as a season high for him. Look, I think we're gonna see what the Mavs are made of because for a while we'll have to. I mean, we've been saying that people need to step up to help out Luka. So I don't know. We'll see if they can be consistent, especially if Luka is gonna be kind of like day to day. He might have to take some games off and such.
Yeah, as we said before, who's going to be that second banana to Luka Doncic? Tim Hardaway Jr. stepped up big last night with 11 big points, a couple of big baskets in the fourth quarter. Devontae Finney-Smith, he had 18. He was the second leader scorer on the Mavericks team on the score sheet last night. And also, too, like you said, Spencer Dinwiddie, a one-time Chicago Bull, by the way. He led the Mavericks for 36. On the flip side for Phoenix, I know Cam Johnson tried to do his thing. He had 22 points. Mikal Bridges, I know he had that three that I saw he hit, and how dare he point at the Mavericks bench. I know he was trying to get his teammates going. I know Chris Paul had to tell him, settle it down. We still got a long way to go to get back in this ball game. The Phoenix did get back in, but it was too little too late. It was a hot shooting, the Dallas Mavericks that won the game for them. On the flip side for Phoenix, they, as we said before, they miss Devin Booker. They need him back. They need him back badly.
Mhm.
Chris Paul, at his age, he can still play, but he's not what he once was because of injuries and his age. So and he missed some games earlier part in the season. So and DeAndre Ayton, I know there's been some problems with him and the coach over the summer, especially given what happened in Game 7 against this team last year. But something's going on with him. Other than what happened this offseason, I just cannot put my finger on it.
Sort of a strange things going on now over there in Phoenix. Real quick
Mhm.
before we go to break, the Knicks come back and beat the Celtics in overtime, 121-17, 37 points for Julius Randle. He's averaged about like 35, 36 points in his last 5 games. The last 5 games. So a nice win for the Knicks after they were up early, and the Celtics did come back and tied the game going to
Mhm.
overtime, but they outscored. And I think Randall, I think outscored. I think like had 6 of those 10 points that the Knicks scored in overtime to beat the Celtics. So a nice win for the Knicks.
Yeah, and also too, you had Emmanuel quickly with 17 big points off the Knicks bench. That was key as well. Jalen Brunson, I think he may be an all-star. He's a borderline all-star this year for the Knicks. He had 29 points as well. So with Julius Randle leading the way, who else was going to step up for the Knicks? It was Emmanuel quickly and Jalen Brunson last night. Also, too, RJ Barrett, who's I think has had a nice season. He contributed 19 points as well, also grabbing 4 rebounds. So the Knicks are starting to play some good team basketball. I'm not saying give Coach Tibbs the coach of the year, but this team is playing better than I thought they were going to play. They're now 4 games over 500 at 27-23. Sitting right in the middle of the Eastern Conference, they sure is looking a whole lot hell better than the Bulls.
We'll have to wait and see because we saw what happened last year too. They kind of fell
Yeah.
back to her, so we'll see what happens
Yeah.
there. Look, maybe having Brunson will make a big difference. Now, real quick before we go to break, the Nets are upset by the Pistons, 131-22. Sadiq Bey had 25 points, which is a career high for him, and they had 8 players in double figures, including all 5 stars for the Pistons. This is despite 40 points from Kyrie. Ben Simmons, you wonder how much he scored? The big goose egg. He had 0 points. He was 0 for 3 and didn't even 0 for 3 from the field and didn't even bother attempting the 3. So probably there's your reason why the Nets lost.
Yeah, but give Nicholas Claxton credit. He was the second leader scorer in the Nets. He had 27 points and 13 rebounds. He's one of their big young guys. He's very active inside, and so that he was the only one, in my opinion, decided to step up last night as outside of Kyrie. But take a look at the bench. Besides Sumner scoring 24 points, you really didn't get that much contributions from the bench. TJ Warren only had 2 points. That's not going to get it done. And the rest of your starting 5 really didn't do anything outside of Claxton and in Irving. Of course, this is all due to the injury of Kevin Durant, but credit to the Detroit Pistons. There's no pressure on them. They're not expected to go anywhere. They can play free and loose, and that's what happened last night. They took advantage of Brooklyn's miscues.
0 for Ben Simmons. Still, guys, overall. We'll recap the rest of the weekend in the NBA. Also, too, some college hoops scores, and we remember one of the voices of college hoops as he passed away late last night. Lakeena McGee, Sydney Brown, Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. More hoops talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool. These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports and the hashtag Football Friday edition. We're live in the living color right here on SportsZone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan's going to begin the IG.
We have less than 90 minutes left of this extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us regarding the Bulls or the NBA at large, you can always hit us up in the comment section at SportsZone Chicago's Facebook page or SportsZone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Continuing our NBA discussion, one more again, one of the review from last night, Lakeena, before we get to the best and worst from the rest of the week in the NBA. The Los Angeles Clippers, it was nice to see them get back on track against a lesser opponent in the San Antonio Spurs. They beat the Spurs by 38, 138-100. Paul George led all scores for 35 points, while Kawhi Leonard had his best game of the season, scoring 27 points and to go along with 7 assists. Lakeena, as I said before, once this Clippers team is finally started to get healthy, they could beat anybody in the Western Conference. We all know that spots 2 through 6, 2 through 7 is a big log jam right now due to a lot of injuries from these other various teams. But the Clippers on the outside looking in, it looks like they're trying to creep their way up. I know they're 3 games over 500 right now. But hopefully if their core guys, i.e. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, can stay healthy, this team can go far.
Yeah, hopefully as we get closer and closer to the break, you will see Leonard and PG play more consistent. Also, too, they have some stuff on the bench. I know Nolan Powell had some points on the bench, like 15, and Robert Covington had 13. They were kicking in there, so a lot of their bench guys, played a lot of factors here too. So we'll see. Look, we'll see if they could, if everyone can stay healthy, and Kawhi and PG can play consistency. They could get right back up there near, if not at the top spot. Now going into Wednesday's games, Dame had 60 points. And they apparently needed to, as Portland pulled away from Utah 134 or 124. That was a crazy game in of itself. I watched a little bit of it on the computer here, and it's his third. I'm talking about Dave, his third career 50-point game against the Jazz. That's the most by any player in history, of course, after Kobe. It's his 14th career 50-plus point game. He also tied LeBron and Rick Barry. I'm talking about Dame for the 6th most all time doing that. He also passed Vince Carter for the 6th most 3 points made in NBA history. So a lot to do there. And thankfully, they ended up winning that game. I'm talking about the Trailblazers.
Yeah, Damian Lillard is still one of the best point guards in the league when healthy. I know that Anthony Simons, their third-year guard, is having a nice year. I know they have Jeremy Grant there as well. It would be nice to see him in the Bulls uniform, but that's all in that conversation. But just like we talk about with the Dallas Mavericks, who's going to be that third guy to step up to help Damian Lillard? Anthony Simons has stepped up this year, as I mentioned, to take on the challenge to be that Robin to Damian Lillard's Batman. But who's going to be that third scorer for Portland?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to be the thing now. Of course, Dame made 9 3-pointers, which I said ties an NBA record there in one game. Now, probably the strangest game probably of this week was the Warriors Grizzlies game. 122.
Steph Curry, get out of here!
Yeah, apparently, Steph got ejected for I guess Jordan Poole made a bad shot or something, and I guess Steph was yelling at him, and I guess the ref didn't like that. I guess he said some swear words, and I guess he kicked him out. Don't know why that happened, but I digress. But Poole did redeem himself, got the go-ahead jumper with about, I think, like a half a second, maybe like not even a half a second left, and they were able to pull off that win.
Yeah, the Grizzlies were up big, but the Warriors have found their strength in terms of playing defense and hot shooting. Klay Thompson hit the original go-ahead bucket with around 10 seconds left before I forgot who was the big guy. Brendan Clark tied it with that dunk. Nice pass from John Moran. But the Grizzlies, for some reason, when they play Golden State, it's Oracle, not Oracle, but at the Chase Center now.
It's a Chase Center now.
They run into a buzzsaw for some reason. We talked about it before, Lakeena, when they were there on Christmas Day. So when Steph was out, they got blown out of the building. On Wednesday, they had a big lead. They just couldn't sustain it. Memphis has to get it together. We know they're one of the top teams in the Western Conference. They're still a young team, but you got to finish games down the stretch. You got to execute better, and Memphis failed at that on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll say if they want to get to that next level, you need to, get it going there. So, we'll see. I mean, this has been a big problem for the Grizzlies against the Warriors for some reason. The T-Wolves beat the Pelicans 111-102. Anthony Edwards led the way with 37 for the T-Wolves. Milwaukee beat Denver 107-99. Giannis had 33 points leading the way there. Now, Denver's sort of interesting because they're the number 1 seed as of this moment, as we're recording this, in the West, and they were, remember Jokic didn't play. Jokic didn't play, so I think they were able to take advantage of that. But they had their chance. To talk about the Nuggets did. Aaron Gordon had 26 points leading the way there, but didn't. I know Murray didn't play either, so there was some, definitely without some of their top guys. So I think it's kind of sort of make a big synopsis of this game when the Nuggets weren't at full strength.
Yeah, it looks like Milwaukee's starting to get into form. Hopefully get Chris Middleton back playing more minutes whenever he comes back from his injuries. You had other supporting role players stepping up for Milwaukee so far this year with Grayson Allen. I know he's hating here in Chicago, but that's another issue. But Giannis, he's close to damn near unstoppable, and he's going to continue to do that to the day that he retires. But as far as the whole team is concerned, they're just rounding into form, and you have to consider them to be a title contender come playoff time. They're up there with Boston and Philly, who's quietly making his way back up to the top of the pack of the conference. So it's going to be interesting how Milwaukee finishes this season.
Speaking of Philadelphia, they got a nice win against the Nets, 137-133. Tyrese Maxey had 27 points leading the way for them. And it's interesting because that they led the way there with Harden. Harden, kicked in. Let's see here if my computer will come out. He had 23 points up top of Harden. Embiid had 26 and 10 boards. So, a nice win for them. They actually ended up being a pretty close game, between these two. So pretty interesting, how it kind of ended. But yeah, nice win for the Sixers.
Yeah, the Sixers are taking advantage of Brooklyn's injuries and mishaps, and that's what good teams do. You take advantage of a weakness of your opponent, and you pound it home. Joel Embiid is having a nice year. We'll get to his all-star status, ... question mark in just a moment, but he's having a nice year. Like you say, James Harden, he's not the same player that he once was a few years ago, but if you still get a nice contribution from him, that's a bonus. But some of the other guys have been stepping up, as you mentioned, Tyrese Maxey, and some of the other key guys coming off the benches. So, and Philadelphia, they just need to play team ball every single night, and to continue to help out Embiid and really test is really over the last several seasons is playoff time. What are you going to do when times get tough? That's what I'm waiting to see from this Philadelphia squad.
Yeah, hopefully they can stay healthy too, and kind of maybe get back to near, right there. Now going into Tuesday's games, Miami, our girl, we gotta get our girl Alana Tekar back on the show because she was very happy about this win against the Celtics, 98-95. Bam Adebayo had 30 points leading the way for them, and it's sort of interesting that the Heat can kind of sort of like you may have something to say on who gets that top seed. They're
moving up very quietly. We were telling you guys this the last couple of weeks.
No one's really been paying attention to them, and I think if you're the Heat, you probably prefer it that way. But a nice win by the Heat against the Celtics.
Yeah, as we said before, the Heat are led by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo offensively, but who's going to step up? Tyler Hero and Gabe Vincent. Who else is going to step up in those roles to help out scoring wise? But we all know that the team identity of this team is defense, and Eric Spoelstra has had his blueprint all over the squad for the last several seasons. So it's not a mistake that this team is 27-22 right now, and they begin to done at the defensive end. So we'll see how long this lasts. Like you said, they'll definitely have to say who's going to get that top spot in the East. I wouldn't ignore Miami.
Yeah, and they shouldn't be ignored either. The Clippers beat the Lakers 133-115. That's their 10th straight win against the Lakers. But LeBron had 46, so now he's got 40 points against all 30 NBA teams. Yay for LeBron. So the Clippers were actually the only team that he did not score 40 points against. So he ended up doing 46 in a losing effort. So now he's got all there. So we can feel better about that, even though they did lose. But let's see here. The Wizards edged out the Mavs 127-126. Kyle Kuzma had 30 points. See, Bulls fans, now you don't have to feel so bad. The Wizards beat the Mavs. There you go. But that's despite 41 from Luka. So on Tuesday, but sort of a nice win by the Wizards. That's why they're right there with the Bulls for that last playoff play-in spots.
You're listening to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. As we discuss the NBA at large, we'll have college basketball talk coming up here in a few minutes. Lakeena, before we get to the All-Star starters results, I want to ask you about this regarding the Denver-Milwaukee game from Wednesday. You mentioned Jokic didn't play, and I believe Jamal Murray didn't play.
Didn't play either.
Excuse me?
Murray didn't play either.
Murray didn't play, and there was both sitting due to rest. I know this is the second game that Nikola Jokic has missed this week, and there's been a whole lot of questions been brought up this week throughout the NBA Twitter space and on national sports talk radio shows about reducing the regular season from 82 to 65 games, and what can NBA Commissioner Adam Silver do to discourage teams from sending their guys just to quote unquote rest, load management. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like it either. I know there's new ways to do some things, but guys just missing random games just because that's bad for your product. I know the NBA is the second most popular sport in the United States, but if you're going to have guys missing games just because, that's not good for the product, and the fans will turn on you in a heartbeat. It hasn't happened yet, but it's just that the value of the regular season is the value of the regular season is not there for many of these teams anymore. And me personally, I don't like it. I know we come from the era of the golden age of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s that you saw many of your superstars play 82 games or damn near close to it. We don't see that anymore, and I'm very disappointed by that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the All-Star stuff when we talk to our girl Christine coming up, because I really want to get into college hoops after this this point. But I mean, look, I think people need to remember too that it's not like how it was back then. A lot of these guys play ball for their country. I know Jokic plays for his home country, so look. Euro ball and all those things. I mean, look, it's a lot of wear and tear on these guys like it used to be. So I don't blame guys. Yeah, it sucks that you buy a ticket to watch the Nuggets and you can't see Jokic or Murray. And sometimes when Steph takes games off, when LeBron takes games off, I get it. But I think, look, there's a lot more wear and tear on these guys like it used to be. So it's not like how it was back in the day where these guys are not playing Summer League and Euroball for the respective countries and FIFA and all these other things. So I think people need to kind of just give them a break Now, could you shorten the season? Sure, but you better tell your network rights holders that you better give us something else to kind of combat this. So I get that folks are upset about it, but I think for me, it's just like it is what it is. I'm not gonna freak out over guys if they want to take a rest, fine, whatever. For them, I think for them, for the longevity, especially since the playoffs are so long now, I don't have a problem with it. So it is what it is.
You're listening to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. I'm Sid and Lakeena. Let's now transition over to college basketball. And let's start out locally as the Fighting Illini improved their record to 14-6 after a big win on Tuesday night, defeating the Ohio State Buckeyes 69-60 down there in Southern Illinois, Champaign to be exact. Brian Sensabaugh led the Ohio State Buckeyes with 14 points. Terrence Shannon for the Illini had 17 points. Coleman Hawkins, I should say, was a second leader scorer for the Illini with the 11 points. It was nice to see Illinois get back on track. They had to fight their way out of it, but they came through big down the stretch at the end.
Yeah, see, the good Illini team showed up today, that night against Ohio State. I mean, plus they were also hitting their threes too. I think that's usually sort of like a thing that kind of be a testament to them. I've seen that their losses, they didn't hit their threes. They did shoot their threes against Ohio State. So I think it's pretty cool. Again, we'll see. I mean, look, you still got to face Purdue. I mean, Purdue got a nice win against Michigan, 75-70. Zach Edey had 19 points leading the way for Purdue. Hunter Dickinson had 21 for in a losing effort from Michigan. So people in Michigan are kind of wondering that is Juwan Howard he'd be on the hot seat, but we'll just have to wait and see there. We'll see what kind of happens with that. Arizona beat Wazoo 63-58. USC avenged their early loss to UCLA. They dominated those second half. I saw this game. They outscored the Brewers. They like 15-7 or something like that. As SC beat UCLA 77-64. Boogie Ellis had 31 points. He actually outscored the Brewers in the second half. He had more points. And he had like about 21 in the second half. But like 28 of those points were in the second half. But nice win for the Trojans. Nice signature win for them. This is what they needed to as we get into bubble teams and such. And FAU stays undefeated in Conference USA. They needed overtime, but it was a close one, but it wasn't really a close one. They pulled away from Middle Tennessee in the second half. They're now 10-0 in Conference USA. They're 21 overall, 85-67 the final there.
Yeah, going back to Monday's action for Big 12 Big Monday from ESPN, number 17 Baylor defeated Kansas, handed them their third straight loss, 75-69. Jalen Bridges for the Baylor Bears, 11 points, 9 rebounds, 3 steals. Jalen Wilson had 23 for Kansas, but I watched that majority of that game, Lakeena. Kansas had another slow start. They came back and actually, I think took the lead at one point early in that second half, but Baylor got scrappy, scored inside, and Kansas didn't know what to do. Lakeena, as we talked about with the Dallas Mavericks and the Portland Trail Blazers in the NBA, who's going to be that second banana to help out Jalen Wilson? Because he's one of the top players in the country, and you can't depend on him to bail you out all the time.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that's something Kansas is gonna have to figure out. But unfortunately, I think they're going through kind of like a rough part of their schedule. So the Big 12 is very tough. There are no easy wins in the Big 12, so it's going to be very interesting to see if I think they can get together. I think they can. So but we'll have to see what happens. I'm sure they'll figure it out too. But a nice win for Baylor, and I actually watched that game. It was actually a great game. And Northern Illinois. Now we don't talk about Northern Illinois hoops much anymore because they haven't really been prevalent since the late 90s. But they got a nice win against one of the top teams in the MAC, Kent State. 86-76. So they broke a 10-game winning streak with Kent State. So it was a nice win for the Huskies. You kind of put that notch on their belt there. And also Imani Bates, if you guys remember the name, we talked to our buddy Cassie Carlson from Fox Chicago, I should say, and who covered him when he was in Memphis, when she was in Memphis. But he outscored Toledo, but unfortunately, they lost. Eastern Michigan did, but a nice showing by him. Going back to Thursday, I'm talking about yesterday's games. It'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting to see if some of these. I kind of feel like we're going to get to the point in this season where we're going to be seeing a lot of maybe some bubble teams getting ready to go and such. So we'll see what happens. Michigan State got a big win against Iowa. well, maybe Tom Izzo, now that his guys are healthy, they're starting to kind of figure things out a little bit. Now, one viral moment that came out from it actually involved Loyola. Remember, they're now in the A10. They played Duquesne. Some guy who says he's from Uber Eats, was delivering something. I know you
He's
saw
just
this.
strolling all down the sideline, like, dude, the ball's in play. Get your ass off the court.
Well, yeah, and apparently, I guess it was also a prank on social media. So I'm like, really, dude? I mean, this look, I love that Uber Eats always say, look, it wasn't us. We didn't do that. We don't do that kind of stuff. So not no college campuses anyway. So yeah, that whole thing was like very weird. But yeah,
just strolling like he's casually walking through Grand Park. You're like the ball's in play. Get your ass off the court.
It's that was the whole thing was just silly. But no, go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
Speaking of possible bubble teams, the Northwestern Wildcats, they played their makeup game on Monday against Wisconsin, beat them in Evanston 63-66. Now the Wildcats are 13-5 on the year. Is it time to start taking them seriously too?
They got a couple of tough games coming up this weekend, so I'm a little bit. They still need kind of another big signature win. So I think beat Wisconsin can kind of help that, but. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if they can kind of get it going and such. But yeah, it's sort of strange how that transpired. That was just a strange game, all around. Now Iowa State beat K-State. They're now in first place by themselves in the Big 12. 80-76. Remember what I said about the Big 12? I mean, it's kind of a log jam there. Texas and TCU had some big wins. Clemson had a nice win division. They lost from last year against Georgia Tech. So some very interesting with Southern Illinois Salukis. They pulled away from Murray State 68-64. So we'll see if they can kind of get it going in the Missouri Valley. But that'll be very interesting. So so a good showing there. Now going into this weekend's games, tonight on CBS Sports Network, and New Mexico trying to avenge that early week loss, which shouldn't have been a loss, but it's a whole different. We don't have time to talk about that. They host Air Force. I'm sure they're going to want to bounce back from that loss to Nevada. Tomorrow's matchup, you got Boston College and Virginia on ACC Network. You got Auburn and West Virginia. That's not going to be an easy place to play down there in Morgantown. Temple meets UCF. Number 13 Xavier meets Creighton. That's 11:15 on CBS.
Minnesota and Northwestern on Big Ten Network tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock.
Alabama and Oklahoma. No, this is not a typo. This is the SEC Big 12 Challenge. Don't ask why they're doing this in the middle of the season, folks. Don't ask, but that'll be at 1 o'clock on ESPN. That should be a fun one. Iowa State and the Mike Bermans, as we call them. That should be a fun one on ESPN2. Iowa State and Mizzou. Marquette meets DePaul at FS1 at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, 2 o'clock on Fox TV. Yes, the big Fox television network. Illinois will travel to Madison, Wisconsin to take on the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin 12-7, as I mentioned, they lost to Northwestern on the road earlier this week. Illinois 14-6. They beat Ohio State on Tuesday. Big game for both teams, but I think it's a bigger game for Wisconsin. Remember, Illinois beat them early in the season.
Yes, it did. So they're going to want to try to avenge that loss. Cincy number 3, Houston at CBS at 1:15. I think our buddy Spiro Dees will have the call for that one, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken on that one, but TCU and Mississippi State, 3 o'clock on ESPN2. Arkansas and Baylor at 3 o'clock. Let's see, Hofstra and Charleston. They're in the American East, and Charleston hoping to stay in the course in that conference. Miami beats Pittsburgh, Western Kentucky, and number 21 Florida Atlantic and Conference USA. Seton Hall and Butler at 3 o'clock on FS1. Let me see here. You got the night game, Sid.
The night games in the top 25 will have number 22 St. Mary's visiting BYU. That's on.
That should be a fun one.
Yeah, that will be a fun one on ESPN2 at 9 o'clock. We have Kansas and Kentucky at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Ooh. And number 14 Gonzaga visiting Portland at 6 o'clock.
Texas and Tennessee, that should be a fun one. A top 10 matchup on ESPN at 5. Florida and K-State at 5 o'clock as well. So Utah and Oregon, that should be a fun one. The Pac-12, they're in the top tier in the Pac-12 right now. And you know what? We'll actually do the Billy Packer remembrance later on after this break. We'll talk to our buddy Josh Frydman from WGNTV. I know he's a big college hoops fan himself. Of course, we'll talk about that. Providence and Villanova at 11 o'clock on FS1. Georgetown and St. John's at FS1. And the Detroit Mercy and Youngstown State get to see Antoine Davis to see if he can continue his big scoring record. So those are college hoops for this weekend coming up.
Yeah, stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports, the hashtag Football Friday edition continues with Josh Frydman of WGNTV Sports Chicago and Christine the Queen Manika. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. You're listening to SportsZone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared.
Do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting?
I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6.
It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention.
I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up.
My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention.
It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the hashtag Football Friday edition. We're live in living color right here on SportsZone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
And if you want to hit us up in the comment section, especially for our next guest, you could always go to SportsZone Chicago's Facebook page or SportsZone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can also watch SportsZone Chicago now available on Roku TV. Lakeena, let's not waste any time. We were in a different place a couple years ago when we last had the next guest on. Now things are more than back to normal. And Chicago sports is back to the way it's supposed to be outside the winning. And to help us talk about Chicago sports and the NFL at large, we'll bring in our guy from WGNTV Sports Chicago. He's our guy, Mr. Josh Frydman. Josh, welcome back to the show. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Sid. Hey, Lakeena. Great to be back with you guys. Yeah, back to normal, which is fun for us reporters, being back in locker rooms and clubhouses, doing our job, not just over Zoom. So it's been a fun transition back to normal, and hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, you can follow Josh Frydman on Twitter at Josh_Frydman. Once again, at Josh_Frydman. Josh, we aired out our grievances about the Bulls to start off our show. They're currently 4 games under 500. There's rumors around that Zach might be traded, that DeMar or Vooch may be traded. Billy Donovan's starting to get some heat now from certain media and bloggers on social media. You could take however you want on social media. I always say, do you take things as a grain of salt on social media? But what direction do you think this Bulls team is headed? Because after what I saw last night, the chemistry is just not there. What do you do at this point? Just being stuck in mediocrity, especially in the NBA, is not a good place to be.
I think the Bulls have taken the mantle from the White Sox of most frustrating team in Chicago. One Reinsdorf franchise to another, right? The expectations for the White Sox this summer, we know what happened there. The Bulls, look, I don't think anybody thought they were going to win a championship this year, but based on what we saw, especially the first half last year, there was hope coming into this season they can compete maybe for a top 4, top 6 playoff spot. Right now, they're fighting just to be a play-in team, and I know you can point to there's no Lonzo Ball, and it is a striking difference how this team has played with Lonzo on the floor versus with him out, but it's a more than 80-game sample at this point, guys. Lonzo last played over a year ago. You can't just bank on Ball to come back. And when you have a max player like Zach LaVine, when you have an all-star and future Hall of Famer like DeMar DeRozan, another all-star like Nikola Vucevic, you should be a top 6 team in the East. I don't know why the chemistry is off. It feels like this team shows up when it wants to. It feels like they look on the other side and they say, oh, that team is 10 games under 500. Let's play 2 quarters and we'll be good. Haven't they learned enough? These losses to the Hornets, the Rockets, the Magic, the Thunder, the Wizards. I can go on the list of, you just look at the bottom 10 teams in the NBA. If the Bulls have played them, they've lost, except for basically the Pistons, who they beat in Paris and beat one other time. So it's the only bottom feeder that they haven't had trouble with. So I talked to Darnell Mayberry from The Athletic a week ago about this. He said it's a sign of immaturity, which when you look at this team, it's frustrating to think they're immature with a veteran head coach like Billy Donovan, veterans like DeMar DeRozan. I mentioned the other all-star players. Alex Caruso has been around winning organizations before. So what is missing? What is that void? Why are they underperforming against these poor teams? And, right now, there's less than 2 weeks until the trade deadline, guys. I don't know what the front office is thinking. I don't know what they're going to do because you're kind of stuck in a certain way. Vooch is in the final year of his contract. Do you trade him? Probably not going to get back anything close to what you traded to Orlando to get the all-star. Do you decide to do that and start to revamp on the fly? Do you say the rest of the season is a wash and you start looking ahead to the future? Do you trade Alex Caruso, who's probably one of your biggest trade pieces? I would doubt they looking to try to trade DeMar or Zach, just signing him to a max deal. But in the summer, those could be real conversations to have for this front office.
The whole thing is baffling, Josh, and I it's sort of like, it's frustrating. They're only about 4 games out of the 4.5 games out from the 6th seed. So I know people don't want to hear that, but it kind of feels like, you know what? I don't know what else can you say at this point.
Yeah, look, I mean, the bottom half of the East in those 6 through 12 positions are fluctuating. We've seen Indiana take a tailspin after Tyrese Halliburton went out. And of course, the Bulls couldn't hold the 21-point lead against the Pacers on Tuesday. So taking advantage of teams in front of you, whether they have injuries or whether they have, coming off back-to-backs or whatever the circumstances are, the Bulls are letting wins, basically fall through the cracks. And when you look at the end of the season and you're determining whether they're going to be a play-in team or just a playoff team in general, those victories that you should have had during those dog days of January and December, and that's where you're going to look and see, wow, that's the most disappointing for this team. But going forward, there's a lot of tough conversations this front office is going to have because they went all in. And you credit what AK and Eversley were able to do a couple years ago to totally revamp this team, right? There's basically no one left from the Pax and Gar Forman era on this roster besides Zach and Kobe White, I think is it. So they revamped this team on the fly. They gave it a go, and they were the number 1 seed for the first half of the season last year. Let's not forget that it did work. Ball went out. They had injuries to Caruso. The chemistry, for some reason, just couldn't fit after that. And maybe they just put too much into the stock of having a healthy Lonzo Ball because they don't shoot the 3 ball at all. That's a huge concern for this team. They don't shoot it well, and they don't shoot it with any type of consistency or the last 10 attempts. They've been that way for the last couple of seasons, and that's what the NBA is, guys. We know this watching the game. Teams will routinely put up 40, 50 3-point attempts per game. The Bulls are less than 30 per game. So you can have a high frequency and efficiency 2-point team with DeMar and with Zach at the rim and with Vooch. But when you're trading 2s for 3s, the math just doesn't add up.
One more question about the Bulls before we move on. Nikolai Vucevic, his usage in the post has been up and down this year. They really used him in the post last year. This year, at least through the first month of the season, when they use Vucevic in the post, he's been more effective. You could tell the Bulls' offense starting to flow that much more. When Zach and DeMar they have the ball, they just stand around for a while. They went away from Vucevic and their offense stagnant, but it looks like they're starting to get back into that now, except for the last couple of games. Talk to us about the usage of Nikolai Vucevic, and should they use him more in the post? Because he's one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best passing big men in the league, because even if he doesn't have the shot, he usually gives the ball over to the open man, and the Bulls offense will flow that much better.
Well, Sid, you know what's changed the last couple games? DeMar DeRozan has been back in the lineup, and it just doesn't seem when the 3 star players are on the floor together that it flows well, because I agree. When you run the offense through Vooch, whether it's at the high post, whether he is a pick and roll player, he can have the threat from 3, right? He's actually shooting very well from behind the 3-point line, one of the few Bulls who can put it up and score in bunches from distance. When you have that threat from a stretch 5, and that's what the Bulls envisioned when they traded for Vooch, right? He was that type of player in Orlando. It really changes how this offense looks. But when you have a guy like DeMar DeRozan who shoots the majority of his shots from inside the 3-point line, right? He's a 2-point shooter. And when you have Zach LaVine, who is a heavy isolation player, one guy's going to be left out. And it seems to be more often than not, it's Vooch. And yet, when Vooch is out there as a playmaker, we saw it against the Golden State Warriors a couple weeks ago. He was outstanding, and it was without DeMar DeRozan. He was still injured, and Vooch was getting his. It was run through Vooch. Passing, as you mentioned, Sid, he's one of the best big man passers in the league. And so that's why you wonder here, if those 3 players just don't seem to fit together, the puzzle for some reason is just not cohesive. Do you have to trade Vooch? Do you look to trade DeMar if you want to bring back Vooch this offseason? So it seems to me that when Vucevic is able to facilitate and when he's a threat from 3 and it opens up the floor and it spreads things out, the Bulls are at their best on offense. And Billy Donovan has to find a way to make that happen more often.
Yeah, let's get out of the depressing part for a second, Josh. I want to move on to something else, but let's talk some Bears. At least things are kind of looking up for them. They got the number 1 pick. They got a lot,
which is hilarious, right? Go from the Bulls to the non-depressing 3-win Bears, right?
Yeah, not depressing. Not as depressing. Well, I'll say that. Not as depressing, but they got the number 1 pick. Of course, they got a lot of cap space. They got a new president, Kevin Warren. What do you think they're going to do this offseason?
Yeah, they're going to make a lot of moves to get this team better quickly, because if you've seen, just look at the Final 4 in the NFL this weekend. Besides the Chiefs, the Bengals 2 years ago had 4 wins. The Eagles 2 years ago had 4 wins. The San Francisco 49ers 2 years ago had 6 wins, right? There were some injuries and there's some circumstances there, but those teams all had top 10 picks just 2 years ago, all right? It doesn't take long to turn around a team in the NFL, especially when you have a quarterback under a rookie contract. That is the biggest blessing the Bears have, because they believe they found their quarterback in Justin Fields. And we can get into Fields more if you want. But if you go with Justin Fields this offseason, you have $120 million to spend. You have the number 1 draft pick. You have so many options if you're the Bears front office and Ryan Poles. And we don't know too much about Poles yet. But based on the trade deadline, we know he's aggressive. We know he's going to go get a weapon for Justin Fields, even though you don't love the Chase Claypool trade right now. Maybe that changes if Claypool gets more of an offseason with Fields and becomes a true number 2, number 3 wide receiver. But he showed that he's going to be aggressive to get guys to help Justin. He didn't do that in the offseason because he felt like he had so many other holes to fill. And there's still that to fill right now. But you got offensive line concerns, you have wide receiver concerns, you have a running back who is a free agent in David Montgomery, and you have a ton of defensive holes right now.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the Bears right now is they control the offseason. Everything runs through Chicago because they're going to take trade calls on the number 1 pick. They're going to take trade calls on disgruntled wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins. If Tom Brady leaves Tampa Bay, you got maybe Mike Evans, maybe Chris Godwin, DJ Moore in Carolina. What happens with him? You can go on and on the list. T. Higgins, is he going to get paid by Cincinnati? If not, do they look to trade him? So there's a lot of creativity at Ryan Poles' disposal. And it doesn't mean the Bears are going to go from 3 wins to 10 wins next year, but they're going to be competitive in an NFC North, guys, that quietly is very up for grabs. Aaron Rodgers could be leaving Green Bay. They were disappointing as well. Minnesota was a fluky first-place team. Detroit was good, and maybe they're on the rise, but if you feel like they're your biggest competition going forward, why can't the Bears be a surprise team as soon as next season if they hit this offseason?
We're hanging out with our good buddy Josh Frydman from WGNTV Sports in Chicago right here on Second City Sports, the Friday edition. Sid and Lakeena hanging out with you. We're live in living color on SportsZone Chicago. Staying with the Bears, Josh, we saw an improvement from Justin Fields from the beginning of the season until the end of the season. And minus the offensive line play, I think that he's the franchise quarterback going forward. I think he's more of a passer than he is running the football. He had to run the football more than he had to. I know after the Detroit game here in Chicago, he said he was tired of running. I know he didn't want to throw his teammates under the bus, but he was tired of running because of bad pass protection that he has in front of him on the offensive line. But what else do you think he needs to improve on heading towards next year? We all agree that he needs more talent around him, but what else in your mind you think he needs to improve on heading to 2023?
Sure. Yeah. And look, if you look back at who he was at Ohio State, he wasn't a running quarterback. He could use his legs. He's got 4.4 speed. He's going to use his legs, but they weren't running, QB options or RPOs with Justin. They weren't letting him run the ball 10, 12, 14 times a game. The Bears changed their offense right after the mini bye against Washington, and it worked incredibly. But I think the offensive scheme changed because they looked in the mirror and they said, what else do we have to lose? There's nothing else we can do offensively unless we get Justin out of the pocket and start utilizing him as an RPO quarterback. So it kind of changed the way that Justin has played over his career. But I think, and if you listen to Justin, he wants to be more of a pocket passer, and he has the arm strength to do so. I think when you look at what he needs to improve on, it's going and reading the field a little bit faster, right? Trusting his instincts when he sees an open player in the NFL. It's different from an open guy at Ohio State. He doesn't have Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson running for him anymore, right? And so he's got to see the field a little bit quicker, read defenses a little bit faster, process faster, and get the ball out sooner. And he'll maybe throw a couple more interceptions with that. That happens if he's going to try to thread the needle a little bit more. But I think you take that for his aggressiveness, and you want to see him. And look, he's only a second-year quarterback. He's been injured the last 2 seasons, so he hasn't even had 2 full seasons under his belt. So when you're working with Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, Cole Kmet is your top 3 options, and then no Mooney for the second half of the year, a banged up Chase Claypool, and you had Dante Pettis and Equinemius St. Brown as your number 1, number 2 wide receivers, right? Those thin margins get even thinner in terms of the open wide receivers. And so you want to see him get a little bit more aggressive in terms of those reads and finding those windows that are open in the NFL, not open in college. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see Justin run it double-digit times per game next year. That's not what the Bears, I think, ideally want to do.
Thank you. That would be like our buddy Christine Mack is going to be joining us in a little bit. Yeah, I think we feel the same way. That she'll be happy, and I am too. Happy you said that, Josh. Let's go to the dive and talk some baseball. I'll start with the Cubs first. Do you think they're kind of starting to they may contend, maybe not necessarily for the Central, but maybe for the wild card spot? Of course, you got Jameson Talon, Trey Mancini, Dansby Swanson, Cody Bellinger to a minor league deal. What do you think? What do you think the mindset for the Cubs is this coming season?
Well, they've certainly raised their floor, right? I mean, they spent $300 million in contracts this offseason. That's top 5 in Major League Baseball. So you can't look at the Ricketts and say, cheap anymore. You can't point poor at the ownership group the way they cried that they were losing billions or whatever it was, right? In
biblical
2020.
Losses.
Yes, the biblical losses, exactly. So the last 2 seasons they've spent, Seiya Suzuki and Marcus Stroman, in the last offseason. This offseason, you mentioned some of the big names. And so they have raised the floor of a team that now I think you have to expect this team to be competitive all season long. You're not expecting them to go in the trade deadline and look to be sellers like they have the last 2 off seasons. I would love to get them and Ian Happ to agree to a long-term contract, because you still need some of these young players that are at the major league level to be here for the long run, right? Maybe it's Nico Horner signs an extension, but keep some of this homegrown talent on this major league roster, because yeah, they signed Dansby and he's the future, but we don't know yet what he's going to be here as the focal point of a team. He was a auxiliary piece in Atlanta for a World Series championship team, a very good defensive shortstop, a guy who came into his own from the offensive power standpoint later in his career as a former #1 overall pick. Does that power stay in Chicago? Do the strikeouts come down a little bit? Does he handle the pressure of being a $170+ million player? Those questions still need to be answered. Cody Bellinger, does he revert back to being the MVP type of player he was in LA 3 years ago prior to the injuries he has? It's a 1-year flyer. So if he does, he's going to get paid and he's probably going to move on. And so these are a lot of questions for this team. But what Jed Hoyer has been able to do, and Carter Hawkins this offseason, is say, hey, we are going to spend smartly. We're going to build a great defensive team. The shift is gone. That means you're going to have to play up the middle, sound defense at shortstop, at second base, out of the hot corner, and up the middle and center field as well. And so they've built this defensive team. That's why they got rid of Wilson Contreras. They sacrificed offense at the catcher position to bring in Tucker Barnhart, keep Yan Gomes, and get really good defensively all across the diamond. And so does that pay off? Do they win a couple of 3-2 games, 4-3 games because of defense and a pretty good pitching staff that can keep them in games? I have questions about the bullpen right now, but overall, I think going into spring training, and I'll be out there covering the Cubs in less than 3 weeks, which I'm pretty excited about, obviously getting out of here and getting to the warm weather in Arizona. I think fans are expecting this team to be a playoff caliber team, maybe compete for the Central, because you don't look at the Cardinals and the Brewers as teams like the Braves and Mets and Dodgers and Padres in the East and West and say, we're probably not going to be in the 100-win vicinity and compete with those guys. The Cardinals and Brewers are going to be near 90 wins. And so I think if you're looking at the Cubs, things break right, you can be an NL Central champion this season. Am I betting on that? Probably not. But I think they've built a team that can definitely compete for the postseason.
Let's go over to the south side of town, Josh, to talk about the White Sox. I know they have a whole bunch of mess off the field. I know we'll dive into it a little bit, but I'll focus it on the field first. Andrew Benintendi, I thought it was a great signing, and he'll patrol left field, but they still have holes in right field and at second base. I know Eloy Jimenez came out earlier this week and said he's still working his butt off to be in that outfield rotation. I don't want to see it, because Lakeena McGee's favorite moment is when Eloy got wrapped up in a net. I don't want to see that anymore. So I have my issues with that. But what do you think the Sox are going to do this spring training? I know they have Pedro Grifol as their new manager now. But this team, even though it looks good on paper, they still have holes to fill in. What do you think they're going to do as spring training approaches at those two positions?
Well, right field, and look, you cannot blame Eloy Jimenez for saying he's trying his hardest to be a major league outfielder. He's 24 years old. He wants to be an everyday player at the plate and in the field. Cannot question that, and you cannot blame him. For the White Sox, there is no doubt in my mind he should be a full-time DH. That is the preservation of a kid who has shown he just gets hurt in the outfield. That's just the bottom line. There's too big of a sample size now that he's playing defense and getting himself hurt, which of course means he can't be that dynamite bat for you at the plate. He is such a good hitter that you want him in the lineup, similar to Yordan Alvarez. He is one of the top hitters in the majors right now. He's the same age, if not right around there, as Eloy. He's basically a full-time DH. He plays a little bit of outfield for Houston, but you have to sit down with Eloy and say, look, you're going to play right field a couple times a year. You're going to play left field for Benintendi a couple times, but we want you to focus on being a DH and showing that you could be a 300 hitter with 40 home runs. That should be your goal. Go and do that for this offense, and you will be more helpful than you will trying to play an adequate right field. All right? You get Andrew Vaughn out in right field at first base. He's going to be focused on his offense much more. I think you're going to see an unlocked Andrew Vaughn. As far as who plays right field, Oscar Colas seems like that he's going to get an opportunity this spring training to earn that job. You have Gavin Sheets there again as well. So you have some options to play with, and we'll see what Pedro Grifol wants to do. We don't know much about him as a manager, right? A first-time Major League manager. So I'm curious to see how he runs the ship, what he's going to be like, how he divvies up playing time and so forth. Second base, you still have a hole as well. But I think people aren't talking enough about this starting rotation. I don't think it's competitive right now with what the Indians and the Twins have, guys, because you have Dylan Cease and then a lot of question marks, right? Lance Lynn is getting up there in age. He can be a very solid player, but what are you going to get from Lance? Lucas Giolito was one of the worst pitchers in baseball the second half last season. Let's be frank. So Lucas going into his contract year, can he revert back to what he was in 2020, 2019, in the first half of 2021 as well? Of course, the Mike Clevenger situation, he's not going to be on this team. He's going to probably either be suspended by Major League Baseball or put on a similar list as Trevor Bauer was until things are investigated with the domestic violence accusations by the mother of his child. And it's some serious allegations, child abuse as well. I don't see why Mike Clevenger is pitching a single inning for the White Sox. But you brought him in because you got rid of Johnny Cueto. And so Cueto was the second best pitcher on this roster last season. So now you don't have Cueto, you don't have Mike Clevenger. You're probably banking on Davis Martin or Reynaldo Lopez filling in that number 5 spot in the rotation. So to me, depth was a huge issue last year. They didn't address that this offseason at the starting rotation. It's suddenly an issue again. Michael Kopech has not shown he could be a more than 5-inning pitcher per start. So yeah, you're banking on a lot of things for the starting rotation that to me, there are some question marks, and I don't see them being better than Minnesota or Cleveland at this point. We're talking late January. Things can change, but I think the expectations are a lot different than they were the last 2 seasons for the Southsiders.
Well, thank you for answering my Clevenger question for me, Josh. Now, as we could wrap it days up here with WGNTV's Josh Frydman here on Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Lakeena McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Now, with Championship Sunday coming up, we're down to the Final Four in the NFL. You got Niners and Eagles and 1 in the NFC, and you got the AFC. You got the rematch from last year. You got Cincy and the Chiefs. Who are your picks and why?
I've been going back and forth on these. It's first of all 2 great matchups. In the AFC, it's funny, you watch the line movement, right? Kansas City was favored right out of the gates. Then it quickly went to Cincinnati, -1, -2, 2.5 in some places. Then we got the injury report. We saw Patrick Mahomes not on the injury report on Wednesday, which was pretty shocking as a full participant. Then now it's Kansas City favored again, -1. Could go up to -2, 2.5 by the time kickoff happens. And so you have the Kansas City Chiefs as the number 1 seed in the AFC, and yet Cincinnati's had their number. Beat them in the AFC Championship game last year, of course. How can you bet against Joe Burrow in the playoffs? He is just ice cold. He is so fun to watch. And yet I'm going to go with Kansas City because I feel like they're going to get some revenge from last year's loss in the AFC Championship game. Feel like Mahomes is going to put together just a crazy performance on one ankle, and he's going to get it done. I'm going to pick Kansas City by 3 points in the AFC. In the NFC, I love the Brock Purdy story. I think it's been incredible to see what he's done as Mr. Irrelevant. And Kansas City is the least quarterback-dependent team, maybe in all of football, right? They have so many weapons. I think Kyle Shanahan should be the coach of the year because of what he's done with 3 different starting quarterbacks on, a 10-game winning streak now. You bring in Christian McCaffrey. You have him, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, great offensive line, and an incredible defense. So they have all the weapons, maybe the best total team aside from the quarterback, though. I think Purdy comes back down to reality a little bit against a ferocious Philly defense. I think you got Jalen Hurts as a difference maker for the Eagles. He showed he was healthy last week against the Giants. So I'm saying Kansas City, Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. Andy Reid versus his old team. You got the Kelsey brothers. It should be a lot of awesome storylines. And that's my pick for the Super Bowl. Haven't decided who's going to win that yet,
though. Last question from me, Josh. We had your colleague and good friend Jared Payton on a few months ago, and we asked him about the atmosphere around your guys' WGN Sports Department. Of course, you have our good buddy Kalen Sharkey, who you work with as well there, and Chris Bolton. Talk to us about working in that great atmosphere. It seems like you guys have a whole lot of fun on the camera. Watch you guys on GN Sports tonight. You can catch that every night at 10:30 p.m. on WGNTV here in Chicago. Talk to us about working with the great sports department. You guys have a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate the shout out for the show. And yeah, we do have a lot of fun. We don't take ourselves seriously. We have a good time. Similar to how me and Jared hosted CLTV Sports Feed. Sid, I know you were on our show back in the day. And, that was kind of the vibe we wanted to bring. It's a different format, right? It's more highlight driven. It's only half hour versus the hour. But we try to bring some of that same passion and same kind of levity to sports. We have a fun segment at the end of the night called What's Good. It's kind of like what's an uplifting story or a viral video or something funny that we can kind of end the night on. We have some really great guests come on for interviews as well. We get to touch on everything from high school sports to the college scene. Chris was covering Chicago State and their football announcement yesterday that they're trying to looking at adding a D1 football team. Caitlin was covering Jeremy Fears from Joliet West, who's a high school All-American. So because we have such a big sports staff, we get to go places that other TV stations in town don't. We're sending 2 people to spring training. We get to do so many things because we have this platform, and we're so lucky that we do. We just hit the 3-year mark of GN Sports. It's really evolved since we started it in early 2020. And it's been great to have Caitlin and Chris on board with JP and myself. We have great producers. Obviously, want to give a shout out to Joel, Rick, Ernest, Sean. We have a big staff that does a lot of the legwork, behind the scenes. And so, very fortunate to be able to work at WGN. I'm actually wearing my WGN fleece right now. 75 years celebrating at WGN this year. So I don't know if you've seen every week. We've had some awesome WGN 75-year specials. We've also had some on GN Sports, looking back at the great teams and players and coaches that we've covered and had on our airwaves. So it's been a lot of fun doing that as well.
I can't wait for you guys to do more of the 90s Bulls because I know you're a little bit younger than us, Josh, but watching those games on WGN and when the games got back on there full time at the start of the 89-90 season, of course, and of course going through those championship years, those are some of the best memories of my life and all of our lifetimes, watching many of those games on WGN TV.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a shame we don't have the games anymore, obviously. But looking back through old videos, I got to talk to Billy Williams recently for one of those sit downs. The 69 team that is still in the hearts of Cubs fans, even though they obviously lost down the stretch to the Mets and curse the Black Cat and everything. But Billy, he says basically WGN and the Cubs, they kind of helped build each other because of the relationship, and that team was so special that there is no 84 team, there is no 2016 Cubs team without what 69 helped build because of the franchise building that Cubs fan base and then the Superstation obviously spreading that throughout the country. So it's really cool to work for a station like WGN that's been around as long as we have and had such a unique tie to the sports fandom of Chicago fans everywhere.
All right. Again, Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. To tell everyone we said hi. I mean, I know we know a lot of people who work there, including yourself. So continue the great work. And you guys, you can follow him at Josh_Frydman on Twitter. So Josh, thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon and stay safe. And hopefully by next time we talk, we'll have better things to talk about on the local side at least.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. Enjoy the games this weekend and we'll talk soon.
All right, much continued success, Josh. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Stay safe.
All right.
All right, so we got to stretch for a second. Our girl Christine Manika from KXRB is on deck. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about all this stuff, and so much more. Championship Sunday coming up next. Lakeena McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Our girl Christine Manika from KXRB coming up and join us right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver. I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on hashtag Football Friday edition. We're live in living color right here on SportsZone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. This is our last segment for the week and the last segment for the show for today. You want to hit us up in the comments section, you can do so at SportsZone Chicago's Facebook page or at SportsZone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments and predictions. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's not waste any time. Let's bring in our home girl from KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Here comes Christine, the Queen Manika. What's up, Christine?
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Doing
Good.
great.
What's going on with
Doing
you?
great. How are you?
Good, doing really well. A little cold, but we're good.
Oh, no, I know it's getting colder here as well. So, yeah, kind of getting back into reality. Yeah, but the sports are hot. So let's get right to it and talk some championship Sunday. We'll talk about that first. Now, of course, we'll do the first game, off the bat here, which is the early game in the NFC. You've got the 49ers and the Eagles. Now, it's interesting because, of course, the Brock Purdy story we talked about with our buddy Josh Frydman from WGN. Interesting that he has not thrown an interception in 59 attempts this postseason, by far the most attempts by any rookie. No rookie has even gotten to the Super Bowl. So, Sid, you start this one, and I think it's gonna be the first time that they've played for the NFC title game, if I'm not mistaken. If I might be wrong, but yeah. So, Sid, what do you think?
Yeah, this is the third title game in the last 4 years for the San Francisco 49ers. I know what happened last year. If I forgot his name, Tart didn't pick up. If he picked up that pass from Matthew Stafford early in that fourth quarter last year, San Francisco would have went on to the Super Bowl. We know what happened to them against KC a few years ago in that last Super Bowl appearance. But focusing on back to today, the 49ers need to run the football with Christian McCaffrey. I think Philadelphia's run defense, although it's good, I think you could wear that defensive front down. On the flip side for Philadelphia, we all know about the weapons with Jalen Hurts and wide receivers A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. But I think Philadelphia is vulnerable a little bit. They can run the football as well, but this San Francisco's defense is way better than that New York Giants defense, which Philadelphia demolished last Saturday night. For me, it comes down to running the football and turnovers. In San Francisco, how much will they blitz Jalen Hurts? We'll see. But my magic number is 3. See, what's the magic number 3? If if San Francisco can sack Jalen Hurts 3 times, I think they'll win this game. One more again, as you young folks would say. If San Francisco's defense can sack Jalen Hurts 3 times and at least get 2 turnovers, I think Philadelphia fans will be sitting in their beer crying out there in Lincoln Financial Field. So I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers in a close run. I think 13-10, 16-13, somewhere right there. The 49ers must keep this a low-scoring game because we all know that Philadelphia can score points at a premium, but Philadelphia is favored by 2.5. I'm going with San Francisco. San Francisco must keep this game close but low scoring.
Christine?
I've been with both of these games this week, and I've been going back and forth so many times. And you really, no matter what the outcome is, it's going to be a great Super Bowl. You have 4 great teams that are in it this year. Brock Purdy, he is just the story of the century. I guess it just goes to show you can be the last one picked in the draft, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of almost starting in a Super Bowl game. So it's crazy how that all went down. And I think if, like what you said, Sid, if the 49ers can sack Jalen Hurts a couple of times and have him do a couple of interceptions too, I think they're going to be in good shape. Jalen Hurts, he's probably, if not the reason why the Eagles are even in it this year, let alone why they've had such a great season as what they did. We all saw what happened when Jalen Hurts was down, maybe those 2-3 games, whatever it was, and they lost all of those games pretty much. So it kind of, you really got to see who comes out there and shows up, because Philly has been having it easy for the most part this season with their schedule. Like they were literally just flying through it, and they haven't really had a challenge up until this point, I think. So oh boy, I love the story. I love what the 49ers have going on, and I think this is it for them. I'm going to go with the 49ers. It's going to be a close game, but I'm going with, San Francisco.
Like you, Christine, I've been going back and forth with this as well. Now, for me, I think, yes, maybe get to Jalen Hurts if you're the 49ers with Nick Bosa and Armstead and Kinlaw and Greenlaw and Fred Warner. But to me, I think it's going to be the secondary. Javarius Ward, Tashawn Gibson. If they can stop Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, that's going to be a tough task, because that's been like the one thing about the San Fran defense. Even though they've been number 1 overall for the last 2 years, that's kind of like the Achilles heel. If Jalen Hurts can kind of force the ball down the field, then maybe that could probably be the thing that could probably catch him. But if, like you guys said, if they get to Hurts earlier, talking about the defense. Now, on the flip side, for the Eagles, I'm sure going to want to do the same thing. They're going to rattle Purdy. That crowd's going to be very loud. They're going to have the music blaring. So we'll see how Purdy has had not easy, but it hasn't really deterred him so far. It's probably going to be like the most boisterous atmosphere he's going to be dealing with so far.
Especially Kevin Hart's there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's definitely right. Absolutely, exactly. So Kevin Hart's going to be there too. So he's going to be like in Purdy's here as well. So I think if you're the Eagles, you want to try to if you're the Eagles defense, you want to try to rattle him a little bit. I've been back and forth. I might hate myself for this later. I'll say the 49ers just because of the experience, I guess, for the most part. But like I said, if you're Fletcher Cox and that front 7 for the Eagles, you're going to try to want to get to Purdy early around him. So it's really going to be the defense for me. It's going to be the real key here. All right, let's go to the AFC at Arrowhead. This is the second straight meeting between these two teams for the AFC title game, Cincy and Kansas City. Now, Joe Burrow, of course, what more has not been said about Mr. Burrow? He is 3-0 now against the Chiefs. He's got the best postseason record of any starting QB for the Bengals. We've seen all the records he's broken. We know Mahomes, he was not in the injury report. He's going to be good to go, so he's going to be at 100%. I know there's been some back and forth trash talk between the two teams this week. So, Christine, you start this one for us.
No, are you sure I should start this one? I don't know. I only feel it right to give it to my buddy Sid to start it off first.
Nah, don't pull that trick, young lady. The counting of the picks are over.
Oh boy. I just, going back and forth again with this team. We don't know how healthy Mahomes is. It's kind of been this hidden secret for the past week about how strong is he right now. We know that he's been practicing, but has he been feeling good? Has he been, taking the time that he needs to have his ankle heal? We don't know. But then again, we also know that he's probably pretty gosh darn mad that he has not beaten Joe Burrow like at all. It's driving him insane, probably. And Arrowhead is not an easy stadium to play at. Their fans are probably just as rowdy as the Philadelphia fans. So that's a whole nother situation. But with this game, both of these teams did not have the best starts this season. And, Jamar Chase was out for that period of time. And now all of a sudden Cincinnati is having like this rebirth moment. Could they do it again? Can they go to the Super Bowl again? Absolutely. Is Patrick Mahomes going to, for once, beat Joe Burrow? I don't know. Like, that could honestly happen. But I think because of the uncertainty that is surrounding Mahomes' health at the moment, I'm going to go with the Bengals. It's going to be a close one. And you really have to figure out how to stop that Kansas City defense. So I'm holding my breath as I pick the Bengals for this one.
Well, we don't want you to hold your breath, Christine. I'll go ahead next, Sid. But to me, the key is going to be the KC defense, and can they, sort of stop that O-line and force Burrow to kind of, sort of rally him a little bit. And because I heard Willie Gay's comments. I know that some folks are kind of getting a little bit antsy about it. But I mean, look, what else is he going to say? I mean, they're pissed. The Chiefs are. They still pissed about what happened last year. So I don't blame him for these comments. I mean, I think for me, it's going to be, can they get to Joe Burrow? I think that's going to be the key. Mm-hmm. Let Mixon be the one to beat you and such. So look, I mean, the KC team is actually a pretty solid defense. They're not Buffalo, unfortunately, but they're at full strength. So for me, I don't know. I mean, can the Bengals defense? But look, the Bengals defense actually kind of kept Mahomes at bay for a lot of parts of that last year's title game. People forget. So, and I know Mahomes, that's in his mind. So I don't know. I mean, this is another one I've gone back and forth on, but I'll pick Kansas City. Mainly because I think they want that revenge. Mahomes, he's 0-3 against Burrow. He wants to get that win. He wants to go back to the Super Bowl. But like I said, if that defense, if Sam Hubbard and Logan Wilson and Trey Hendrickson, if those guys can kind of force Mahomes to kind of test out that angle, if it's not 100%, that's going to be the key. But I think it'll be close. It might come down to a field goal, Harrison Butler's field goal maybe, but I'm going to pick the Chiefs in a close one.
It's going to come down to the running game for the Kansas City Chiefs with Isaiah Pacquiao, especially with the limited mobility of Patrick Mahomes. And let's see if Travis Kelce can have another big game. I know he had 14 catches last week and then went over Jacksonville, but I think he's going to be key as well. On the flip side for Cincinnati, run that ball real hard, continue to do it with Joe Mixon. You saw what he did to that piss poor run defense of Buffalo last Sunday afternoon. Cincinnati is going to have that same game plan again. I know what they did last year in that second half of that championship game in KC. So this team is experienced. They've been in tough situations on the road before. It's not going to be a blowout. It's going to be kind of sort of close, but I'm going with Cincinnati.
But
and Kansas City, as of right now, is favored by 1 point.
Oh yeah, so it's a pick 'em here too. So yeah, but I think if you're Fox, you're going to be fine. Whoever ends up being, I think you're okay with. So
right,
any combination, whether it's Eagles, Bengals, Eagles, Chiefs, or 49ers, Bengals, that's like the fourth time those two would meet in the Super Bowl, or 49ers, Chiefs. I mean, look, you can't go wrong with any of those combinations. So yeah, it should be interesting one coming up on Sunday. And those are our picks for Championship Sunday. Well, yeah, that was quick. You listen to the Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Lakeena McGee, Cindy Brown, our girl KXRB's Christine Manika join us. Now, Sid, we actually did not do the schedule for the NBA this weekend. I'm a little bit miffed about that. So we'll get to the All-Star stuff in just a second because the way they're doing it's a little bit weird. But yeah, we'll get to that. But real quick, tonight's matchups Friday, you got Milwaukee and Indiana at 6:00. And the first game of the NBA TV, though, remember these games are not on ESPN. This is due to other commitments. But yeah, Memphis and Minnesota, that should be a tough, good one at 6:30. Orlando and Miami at 7. Cleveland and OKC at 7. And the second game of the NBA TV, don't have a doubleheader tonight. Toronto and Golden State at 9:00.
Yeah, ESPN will have the X Games and NHL hockey tonight, so that's why those two games are on NBA TV. Going to tomorrow's action, of course, you have the Chicago Bulls at the Orlando Magic at 6:00. ABC will have a triple header to cap off rivalry week in the NBA. At 2:00, we'll have Denver at Philadelphia, followed by the Brooklyn Nets without Kevin Durant, and the New York Knicks at 4:30, and followed by the Lakers and the Celtics at 7:30. Those three games I just mentioned will be seen on ABC tomorrow night. Other games of note in the NBA for tomorrow, the Houston at Detroit, the LA Clippers at Atlanta to take on the Hawks at 6:30, Sacramento at Minnesota at 7:00, Washington at New Orleans at 7:00, and also at 7:00, Phoenix at San Antonio. And then at the nightcap, we'll have Dallas at Utah at 8:00, and at 9:00, Toronto at Portland.
That should be a good triple header there that ABC has. So those are good. Those three games should be really good. Now, Sunday's games, Miami, I should say, at Charlotte at noon. That's right before the NFC title game. Then you got Indiana and Memphis at 5. And you got the Clippers continuing their East Coast road trip against Cleveland at 6:00. And the NBA TV Sunday game of the night, game of the week, you got the Pelicans and the Bucks. That should be a fun one at 7:00. And that is your schedule for this week. This weekend, I should say, in the NBA. Now, the NBA announced their starters for the All-Star game. And we'll start on the Western Conference side, of course. LeBron James was the top vote getter once again. This will be his 19th All-Star game. I think he's already passed. He's tied with Kareem now. He passed Kobe. Then you got Nikola Jokic, Zion Williamson, and Steph Curry, and of course Luka. Those are your pool players. The starters on the Eastern side, top vote getter on that side. You got Giannis, KD. He should be back by then. Jason Tatum, Kyrie Irving, and Donovan Mitchell. So, folks, any issues with any of those selections?
Not really. Although there's no Chicago Bulls, but they don't deserve an All-Star this year because of the way their teams have been playing.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, regardless of what you think of any of the players, they deserved it. They deserve to be starting, obviously, if they were picked. So, yeah, no issues there.
And the weird thing they're going to do is they're actually going to do this like PE style because they're going to have LeBron and Giannis are going to be picking guys, whoever gets named in the reserve. So I guess they're going to be picking, you might see a mixture of Eastern guys with Western guys and vice versa. So I guess that's how they're doing it. Do it kind of like, I would hate to see who's last one to get picked, but that should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm a traditionalist when it comes to these All-Star games. Again, we watch a whole bunch of them, growing up in the 80s and 90s, but I kind of like this. I know that they should have done this. Many fans have wanted them to do this a few years ago, but it'll be nice to see first of all, who's going to be picking these teams. Will it be LeBron or Giannis again, or LeBron somebody else? But I'm interested to see how the NBA pulls this up because everything is about a show now. So I want to see what kind of production that goes into this. I'm actually looking forward to this, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, LeBron and Giannis have already been named captain, so those are going to be picking. So yeah, that should be. Like I said, I feel bad whoever gets picked last. I feel bad for whoever that person is, but that should be.
Yeah, they couldn't just do it just to get under their skin without saying, "Oh no, we think you're the worst one." They can just do it to get that person mad and fired up.
Yeah, they might.
That's something that Jordan would have done for sure.
Oh yeah, he would have done this for sure. They would have done this back in the day. He would have. But
real quick before we move on, I heard somebody on national radio bring this up this week. Besides picking teams before the game, you should implement a trade scenario at halftime. Kind of like what MTV did back in the day, Lakeena,
Oh
with
yeah,
those
with Rock and Jock. Yes. Oh yeah.
Insert that. Like trade LeBron for Giannis or something like that.
Oh Lord, that'll be a. Oh Lord, that'd be a.
They should do that. They should do that.
That would be interesting too. Yeah, have a lot of fun there too. Now, Scott Rowland going to the MLB Baseball Hall of Fame, I should say. Scott Rowland was the only one selected. 7-time All-Star. He's an 8-time Gold Glover, 4th amongst third baseman all time. Only 4 National League third basemen have accounted for more WAR than Mr. Rowland. And of course, Eddie Matthews, Chipper Jones, the late great Ron Santo. All 4 of those guys are in the Hall of Fame. Rowland is now in that list. Do you guys have any issues now? I think he should have gotten in maybe a couple of years ago. But you know how weird that is. Todd Helton, you gotta think he'll get in next year because he was like 11 votes short. But yeah, so what do you guys think? Scott Rowland being the only one to join Fred McGriff in the Hall of Fame this year.
A lot of people, I think, didn't think that this would actually happen. Like there would actually be a vote, and people were like, "Oh yeah, sure, like let's have him go into the Hall of Fame." But no, I think it was well deserved. It was really the video that he showed his parents and just that emotion. It's very bittersweet. I shouldn't say bittersweet, it's just sweet.
The only disappointing thing about this is that the Baseball Hall of Fame, you have these veterans committees and things along that line. You only elect one person to get in. Like I thought, like I said, Todd Helton would have gone in this year. He'll probably go in next year. But there are certain guys, in my opinion, that should be in, like Gary Sheffield. He was never caught for officially caught for steroids. Of course, we all know about Curt Schilling, Barry Bonds, and Roger Clemens. But some of those guys from the late 90s, early 2000s, quote unquote steroid era, there was a suspect that they're in the Hall of Fame now. Which we know this is the case. Why not let Bonds and Clemens in?
Exactly.
That's really what comes down to.
Well, it's sort of weird that I thought Billy Wagner would have gotten in. We talked about it when the list first came out.
Mm-hmm.
He saw a nice little jump in percentage points. Andrew Jones also saw a nice. You got to hope that at least a couple of those guys will get in next year. Carlos Beltran, I would have thought maybe he would have gotten in, but then you get the sign stealing scandal and such. Okay, but yeah, his chance of some people are not going to let him in. But yeah, there's a steroid thing. I never got that. Just put a different way for that era. I mean, it's not like baseball didn't know. Baseball knew what was happening. Now they want to be all high and mighty. They want to be all high and mighty about it. Like, let's not let them in.
There was no rules in place back then
in
the late 90s for steroids. There weren't.
I think from what I've been hearing when it comes to, Bonds and Clemens, I can't remember which one, but and part of the reason why they might not be in it's because they've heard that the attitudes are not the nicest, as in they're not the nicest people. So maybe they're taking those type of politics into consideration. So that's something to think about going forward if you're just a great person on the field and off the field too.
Look at Big Papi. I mean, you saw all the profession he went through, but he was, he's a nice guy. He was so nice to me. He was so, joyful. That's probably how he got in. So, you might be onto something there, Christine. Now, we talked about this earlier with, we didn't really talk about, but yeah, our buddy Josh Frydman brought it up. The Mike Clevenger situation with the White Sox. Christine, I know you got some strong opinions about this. What do you think?
He's not the first guy to get charged for this. He's not going to be the last guy to get charged for this. I think the reason why the White Sox really haven't said anything about it yet is they're going to let the process play out, I think, and kind of go from there. They're following the innocent until proven guilty model, which is, smart nowadays before just jumping to conclusions. So we're just gonna have to wait to see how it plays out. I'm gonna withhold any opinions or judgment until it all comes into light, because everybody's got something going on outside of the diamond. There's a whole nother life that they live outside of baseball, and so who knows what went down during the charging or, just throughout this whole entire relationship. So I'm not saying that he didn't do it. I'm just saying that it's best to let this process play out and just not hold judgment unless you're, Deshaun Watson with 23 women coming out, then you can make a judgment call. But right now you can just kind of take a back seat and let it all play out.
We know there's many athletes as we know, Lakeena and Christine, that have been given second, third, fourth, and fifth chances if you have talent. We won't go through the list, but if the White Sox knew of this incident before they signed him, shame on them. We all know what happened with Tony La Russa, and one of the many reasons why fans were upset at him, besides him sleeping in the dugout. Well, remember, he had that DUI charge, and they had to delay the announcement, even though it was during the height of the pandemic. And so that's one of the main reasons why White Sox fans were upset. Like, he had a DUI charge, but you still let him manage the ball club for 2 years, and that didn't make any sense. But this is really a reflection of the White Sox organization. They really had to take a good hard look at themselves and be honest. That's really what it comes down to. If they knew about this Mike Clevenger situation before they signed him, shame on them. And you notice how they got so far ahead of signing Clevenger. No one was going after him like that. And I'm sure those other teams knew. And they were smart not to sign them, especially to the amount of money that the Sox did. This is all about the White Sox with their eggs on their faces, and it's self-inflicted. I'm with you, Christine. I will withhold judgment until we know all the facts coming out about Clevenger. He'll deal with it in his own way. But this is more about the White Sox organization tripping over themselves on their own 2 feet. They had no one to blame but themselves.
Yeah, it's sort of weird that there's a reason, he's a great reliever. So there's a reason why other teams, and I think there might have been one other team that kind of was after him, besides the Sox, but there's a reason why a lot of teams did not, come at him. So maybe they knew about it and the Sox didn't. I mean, that's on whoever is supposed to, do these background checks. And it's not the first time that, the Sox have been caught with their pants down. So, but yeah, let's withhold judgment. Let's not, make any synopsis between any of that other stuff. Now, we didn't get a chance to talk about this earlier when we talked college hoops, but Billy Packer, who is the veteran analyst for the Final Four, did 40 straight Final Four games on television, of course, and on the radio. Died. His son Mark, who does a great job covering the ACC on the ACC network, he and his brother broke the news late last night. He had succumbed to kidney failure. I'm talking about Billy Packer at 82. He passed away. He was sort of like a voice for the generation for maybe, I know you probably saw a little bit of his games too, Christine, but he was also people forget he was also all ACC when he was at Wake Forest in both 61 and 62. So he helped actually lead Wake Forest to 3 ACC regular season titles and the first Final Four appearance in 62. So a pretty solid player in his own right. But of course, his analyst work, was vital. And so a friend of mine, actually, our buddy Twan Stale, of course, who New York Daily News, who of course covers the Jets. He actually showed a clip of probably one of his best calls. We'll talk about Packer when he and Gary Bender called the '83 national championship game between NC State and Houston. Of course, the Wittenberg,
The late Jim
ball.
Valvano hug is trying to find somebody to hug after that shot. Yeah,
they wanted. Yep, they his words. Packers words were they wanted on the dunk, and of course, like Sid said, Coach Valvano, running around to hug him, and Al McGuire and Dick Enberg. Sure, I know all three are now going to be calling the games up, the March Madness up in heaven this year, but. Yeah, just a great voice. I know he could be polarized for some people, but he was a voice of college hoops for both the ACC and nationally for a long time.
Yeah, he was a sharp analyst, and he has some criticism against certain teams and certain coaches at times, but he called it the way he saw it. And when you watch the tournament game, he was paired up with Jim Nance when I started really getting into college basketball in the late 80s and in the early 90s. I know Jim Nance is going to retire from college basketball after this year, but when you saw those two, you knew it was going to be a big game, and you knew you was going to get a sharp analysis and with the storyline surrounding the teams that were playing, especially in the tournament. So his contributions will never be forgotten. He'll definitely be missed.
Christy, you got something to add, Christine?
Exactly what you said, Sid. Just a great analyst. Always gave a good read on team, players, coaches, whatever the case is. And yes, he will be missed.
Absolutely. Now going back to the White Sox, but happier stuff for the White Sox. They announced yesterday that they picked up multi-year contracts for Jason Benetti and Steve Stone. Now I'm sure it's gonna. We talked about it on on messaging yesterday, guys, and I'm sure, with the commitments, I'm sure Jason's gonna be calling some games for Fox, baseball games for Fox this year nationally. So you gotta think that might, and of course, Steve still he likes to take days, series off and such. So I mean, look, if Benetti is up, we may not miss Benetti too much. I mean, except for maybe weekend series and such, and same thing with Stoney. So guys, what do you think?
I mean, Benetti, he's making his name for himself in his own right. I don't think he was ever going to not do White Sox baseball. I just think that the organization and him, and along with Steve Stone, we're trying to figure out something to let everybody do what they want to do, essentially, whether it's taking that time off or to, venture off into other opportunities. And the White Sox have done a great job with allowing Benetti that freedom, and even Steve Stone too. So I think it's a good decision.
Yeah, that was my gut instinct when I read that story yesterday for Jeff Agres from the Chicago Sun-Times. It's the White Sox. I know they're no different than any other professional team in town, and of course in all your major sports. That you want your primary announcers to do the majority of your local teams' games. That's what they signed up for. But with Jason Benetti's profile growing each year, now doing college basketball, and like I said, he's going to do baseball for Fox. He'll probably do Peacock as well coming up this year as they go into year number 2 of the deal with NBC and MLB. And so with him doing the work, your profile White Sox raises up that much more. So Benetti has done a great job. He'll continue to do a great job. I think the issue for them was how many off days was he going to have, and where he's going to be there to do the available most of those games. You have 162 games. As long as he does between 100, 120, 130, he'll be all right. They've done it before. Let's and not act like this is the first time you've gone through this rodeo.
Well, yeah, the crazy thing about it is that, look, if he has to miss like 30 games, okay, especially as long as it's spread out, I think White Sox fans shouldn't be too worried about it. I mean, it worked. Look, I mean, Boog, does it. He does. He takes. He's gonna be calling the World Series on ESPN Radio starting this coming season.
Yeah, he has Sundays off because he does Sunday night baseball too. So
exactly
on the radio.
Yeah, Marquis accommodates him pretty well. So I think I know Brian Anderson, and when he does NBA, and when he does, of course, he covers he does the Brewers games, but he also does NBA and college hoops for Turner. They the Brewers, they work out for their scheduling too. So I mean, come on. I mean, what's the big deal? Of course, we know our buddy Sparrow Diaz, unfortunately, the Knicks wouldn't let him. That's one of the reasons why he left, because they wouldn't let him do a lot of the national stuff. So
the Lakers too. Yeah, the Lakers too.
That's I heard about that too. Yeah, they let him go too because his star was starting to rise and such. So yeah, so I think local teams need to kind of like, especially if they're guys, it only helps them, their team profile when your guy has national profiles all over the place. So I think these teams, and I'm glad the White Sox and Marquis realize that with our guys. So that's awesome to hear that. I'm happy that Benetti is going to be doing games. I liked it from jump. I'm glad his star is on the rise, and him and we struck gold here in Chicago with a lot of our younger guys too, with him and Adam Amin. So
yes,
awesome.
And both of them being born and raised in Chicago helps that much more.
much more. And of course, we talked about this too also offline yesterday, guys. Looks like there won't be at least the Sox and the Bulls won't be going anywhere. It looks like after, of course, we talked about it. October of next year is going to be when the rights are up. It looks like Jeff Akers reported that it looks like that's not going to happen. He's not going to pull up talking about Ryan Sarp will not pull the plug on NBC Sports Chicago. It looks like they're going to be staying there. Nothing officially yet, but it does look like that's where it's going to go, especially after what's happening with Valley Sports. We won't talk about that because it's a little bit complicated. But so what do you guys think? So I know you told us about it, but I saw buddy Dave Curtis from WBBM. He retweeted an article of a similar thing. So what do you guys think?
At least the White Sox in the Blackhawks. I know the Bulls and the Sox are Rainstorm's groups concerned, but at least they'll have a home for the not too distant future. So,
right,
good for them and good for the folks at NBC Sports Chicago. We know that NBC they have been cutting jobs here and there. We know a few people personally looking have been affected by this, and so our hearts go out to them. But I know that they were struggling whether they should keep on with these regional networks or not. So, but as far as for the not too distant future, good for the Bulls, Blackhawks, and White Sox to still have a permanent home. It looks like for their foreseeable future.
You got anything to say about this, Christine? And we talked about it yesterday.
Yeah, Dad. No, who cares about the Cubs? They can go wherever. It's fine. Bears, nobody wants to watch them embarrass themselves for another year. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, it's gonna be interesting. Well, it's gonna be interesting too because the Bears, they need a new TV home, so they got a new radio home, so they're gonna need a new TV home too. So I know Fox has been one that Fox Chicago, I should say, that they've been one to keep them, but Marquee, they've been gunning forward too. So it looks like it's gonna be a battle between those two as to who will get the rights to those Bears flagships TV games.
It's not the actual games, but it's a pregame show. Inside the Bears, inside the Bears
games, the preseason games as well too. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we disperse?
Real quick, I know we're running up against it. The Pro Football Hall of Famer Ed Reed, he was hired by Bethune-Cookman of HBCU. That's the story. Black colleges and universities. So those of you scoring at home. He was hired to coach the football team about almost a month ago. Shout out to Roland Martin, the TV host and journalist. He's been covering for his YouTube channel, Roland Martin Unfiltered. And Ed Reed put some videos up on his Instagram live page showing the conditions of the school. He didn't like it. He let his football team, his recruits, and then the students follow to help clean up the school. Of course, he showed the inside of his supposedly office. It was filled with mildew and mold and trash. And then, of course, all the parents have been speaking out about this all week. The students have been speaking about this way before Ed Reed was hired, so they've been active on campus. I know Roland Martin's supposed to bring his people down to that campus next week. We'll see what happens. But all I got to say about this is I'm not going to indict every HBCU because that's not fair. That's not right. But this is about the administration and where they lie. They're trying to silence those students' voices, and that's not right. And those conditions, especially at an historic college like that, it looks great on the outside, but the inside looks like trash. That is inexcusable. I blame the administration for that, not the students. The students should be there to learn. They shouldn't be worrying about having mildew in their classroom, and for the football players having to wash their own clothes and practice in mildew and stuff, which causes cancer and other various illnesses. They shouldn't have to worry about outside stuff. And that's not right, and that's not fair. Shout out to those students in Bethune-Cookman for continuing to be active. My support goes to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that. And I think that's one of the reasons why. And I guess the administration was not very happy with Mr. Reed as he posted those videos. Now, look, we know how HBCUs, how unfortunately how they're funded. Some of them are not funded well. That's why some of them have left the SWAC and the MEAC and have gone to other conferences to get more, financial stability and such. I know that President Biden has signed a deal to get more money to get to those HBCUs. I know some, but this is one of those cases where they're not using that money well, and I think it's unfortunate. And it's just And look, I put it on my spot. My spot says, unfortunately, plenty of HBCUs are like that. He knows people who live in those areas, so I think he probably can speak for experience, or by the mod can. So, and you're right, Lamont too. I mean, more attention should be put to those situations, every situation. And I'm shocked that it's not getting more attention. But look, I'm sure he'll get a job somewhere, and then look up, because look what Prime. Look, no one at Jackson State was mad at Deion. Well, most of them weren't, not all of them, but I think most of them weren't. And look, I think you got more more exposure to these programs. So if you want to be treated well, if you want to be at that level with some of the mainstream schools, you got to have the money to do it, and you got to actually use the money well. So it's unfortunate that this is happening over at a historic place like Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah, Ed Reed shined a light on this situation. The students were protesting, but they weren't being heard. And what Ed Reed did put in those videos on his Instagram Live, it really showed to the world of what was going on at that particular school. Like I said, shout out to the students who are continuing to be active in the situation. And Ed Reed actually gave them props. And you could tell that watching those interviews that the students really appreciate Ed Reed, because unlike the administration, Ed Reed has their back, not the administration. And that's a problem with a failed administration.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate too. So I want to end on a happy note, though. Of course, you got the games coming up, so enjoy all the games. Everybody got Championship Sunday, college basketball, NBA. So yeah, golf, and also today the Aussie Open. We'll see if Djokovic can get another Grand Slam title. But a nice showing by the American men too. I think 3 of them made the quarter, so a nice showing by those guys. But yeah, so you got all this stuff coming up too. With that said, you can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at CKid80. Once again, it's CKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Christina, I should say. Where can the lovely people follow you on social media?
They can follow me at @Manika_KXRB.
Like I said, enjoy Championship Sunday, everybody, and of course, the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks won again last night.
That's not good. The tanking job should be back on.
Yay! Woo-hoo, yay! Oh gosh, no.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, we forgot to ask Josh. Do you think that they're going to trade? Are they going to trade Taves and Kane?
Nope.
You don't think they
will?
We'll
find out March 3rd.
Yeah, I'll say we got about another month before the trade deadline, so we'll see what happens with that. But we'll spare you from asking about the Bulls, Christine. I know you're about as smith about them as I am. So at this point, but you can catch
it's
us.
Not the end of February yet.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That is true. You are right. You're right. So yeah, you can watch our show anytime, or listen to our show anytime you want. We'll start with that first on Ward Media, wherever you get your podcasts and such. You also watch us on Roku TV. Let me get that up here. Okay, there you go. So yeah, so if you got the Roku TV app, if you got the Roku stick, you can watch our show, Sean and Maya. What's up, cuz? The Smoke Fellas. I'm sure they'll have some great stuff. Previewing the Championship Sunday this Sunday coming up. Well, tomorrow actually, because the show's tomorrow. But yeah, so for Sid and Christine, I'm Lakeena. Stay warm out there. Wash your hands and be good to each other. This has been Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago, and we'll see you Monday.
Love, peace, and hair grease. Till Monday. Holla!